CBC's ongoing secrecy. I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.media. We know that the state broadcaster has had trouble with secrecy over the years. I've covered everything from access to information requests on how many cars and trucks they owned or leased, and gotten back things like they owned one Ford 500 sedan. Yes, that's right. CBC claimed they ran their entire network on one car. Turned out it was more than 700, and it didn't have to be a big story, but it was telling on their viewpoint. We've had them respond to other access to information requests that to release the information would be injurious to Canada's economic well-being. Yeah, somehow the state broadcaster revealing business information on how they run their operations with their billion-dollar-a-year subsidy would ruin Canada's economy. Well, now we've got another access to information request that shows once again their levels of secrecy. This one has to do with how they plan to respond to news breaking of Jian Ghomeshi, his wild sexcapades, his violence against women, and his firing from host as Q on CBC Radio 1. Well, it's a little bizarre. Hubert Lacroix was told, we know that he was told days after the tape was shown by Ghomeshi to his CBC bosses, videotape that he thought would show him innocent, instead showed him beating women as part of his sexual exploits. They actually blacked out. If you look at question 9, they black out the response in the Q&A section to prep CBC executives. They black out when Lacroix was informed. But then it gets more disturbing. You go further down, question 14, what about rumors of other talent? And again, they black it out in the access to information request. This has been an ongoing problem from CBC. There have been rumors of other talent. There has been attempts by media outlets to find out. We know that there are the women that came forward, even though they reduced their investigation into just Ghomeshi and just his shows. We know that there's been other problems at CBC, but here they are blacking it out. It reminds me of back when I was at Sun, and we submitted an access to information request on inappropriate behavior at just 2 locations, Ottawa and Montreal. We didn't even ask for a long timeline. We got back 400 pages of mostly redacted information. They didn't want to talk about it. And when I wrote about the fact that there was a lot going on, obviously, based on the actual statements of one CBC employee to another, so many cases, can't keep them straight in my mind, was the words used. Well, that's when Hubert Lacroix lashed out at me in a committee saying that I was making things up.
Given our record, you might wonder why you have been seeing stories in Québécois newspapers, the Sun and Journal de Montréal, and also in the television network Sun TV suggesting that CBC Radio-Canada is a hotbed of sexual harassment. Québécois Media based its story on an access for information request which it made and which asked for, and I quote, copies of all documents, including emails, complaints, memos, internal reports, etc., regarding reports of harassment or inappropriate behavior involving CBC employees since January 1, 2010, limited to Toronto and Ottawa. We provided this information. There's a copy right here in front of me. 1,454 pages, mostly emails between human resources staff working to resolve human resources issues. Most of those details are blacked out because they are personal information. That's the law. Québécois' Brian Lilley used that as an excuse for speculation and innuendo.
Ghomeshi proved that there are problems at CBC. Whether they are willing to acknowledge the full extent of them, whether there are further problems, we don't know, because they want to be secretive of it. While they demand answers from other organizations that run afoul of their moral preenings, that run afoul of their vision of how the world should be run, they run away from any and all questions of those few people that are brave enough to ask. Even ask questions they run away from, and they feel they don't need to answer them. As far as the government holding them to account, the Conservatives are too afraid to appear to be bashing CBC, and the Liberals, the NDP, and the other parties are too busy trying to curry favor with them. This is an organization in trouble. Does this latest document release show that there are wild goings-on at CBC? No. What it does is show further attempts at secrecy, further attempts to show that this is an organization that doesn't want to stand up to the scrutiny that it demands of others. And when we're dealing with something as serious as sexual harassment, sexual violence in the workplace, well, that's when the veneer should be dropped. That's when politicians should be demanding answers. That's when other media organizations should be asking questions. Unfortunately, given that it's CBC, that's not about to happen.